They forgot that television should be cheaper than movies, and they're spending 3 times as much on these shows that they would the movies normally.
Yep.
That is insane.
This is Rings of Power money.
To what end? Who is actually getting Disney Plus because of Andor?
Nobody. That's the point. We're going to prove it.
And then they're trying to make the argument that, it's selling merchandise. What merchandise?
No,
Renegade Online.
Tony Gilroy says including the word genocide in Andor was pretty effortless. I don't know why. I don't know what that has to do with anything. But there was a couple of key pieces in here, or key statements in here, and I thought I had them highlighted, but I think I accidentally knocked them out. But they talk about the fact, some of the content of the show, we don't need to do that. But this is kind of where it gets interesting. He says these kind of comments right here. It's really sad, Tony Gilroy says, how many people can find a place to put this word in some place that's meaningful for them. As you know, I've been allowed to start using the word fascism the last couple of weeks. That's liberating. But I don't think it should be any surprise or even too slippery or complicated for people to understand the road that I have to walk to do all of this, to maximize the audience and protect the investment of a really brave company. Disney's so stunning and brave. That's what he's saying. I mean, for Disney, this is $650 million. So right there, full stop, Tony Gilroy confirms, not that he needed to, because we have the frickin' tax filings in the UK, but Tony Gilroy, obviously, Disney and these guys are catching on to the fact that these numbers are being published out there at places like Forbes magazine and here. $650 million. Now, again, that's not a complete figure. And whether he knows that or not, I don't think that Tony Gilroy necessarily was tracking every penny on this show. He just knew he needed X amount of dollars to do this because, again, the $650 million that he's referring to is matching up with what has been so far reported by Forbes and underlying the filings in the UK. The problem is, as we continue to remind people, is that only runs through the end of 2023. There is still an entire 18 months of reporting that hasn't happened yet, that hasn't been filed yet. And this is why we keep telling people that's a lot of post-production and VFX during that time frame.
$650 million.
The real cost is probably going to be closer to $800 million.
Let's take that aside for a minute. Let's just take it at 650. And I made this point on George's stream earlier. Do you realize that's twice as much and then some what it cost to make the prequels?
Yes.
When you start thinking about the amount of films that you could make just for the
I don't mean just one of the prequels. I mean all 3 of them.
Exactly.
And then you can make them again and have money left over.
Yeah. That's kind of the point. And I mean but he's confirming here at 650, but again, I want to caution people that is an incomplete figure. 650
That's
million
insane.
Is probably what the net cost is going to wind up being after the film tax credits are taken out.
On what, though? For what? And here's my problem, and it's allowed me to get a little passionate here about this for a second.
Roughly 12 to 13 hours of finished principal photography.
You're going to get my point here in a second. Andor should not be a show that costs this much, guys.
No.
Andor does actually make sense to make a TV show out of. And let me explain that. Because it should be more of a isolated, less aliens, less special effects, less spaceships type of show. You get my drift here? Cheaper. They forgot that television should be cheaper than movies, and they're spending 3 times as much on these shows that they would the movies normally.
Yep.
That is insane.
This is Rings of Power money.
To what end? Who is actually getting Disney Plus because of Andor?
Nobody. That's the point. We're going to prove it.
And then they're trying to make the argument that, it's selling merchandise. What merchandise?
Lies. All lies.
What merchandise?
BS and lies. It is not selling merchandise of any significant value because, again, we know this. Why? All you have to do, you know what? Sometimes the anecdotal evidence out there is more right than you know. Walk into your local Target, walk into your local Walmart, go down the toy aisle, and see what Star Wars merchandise, if any, is on the shelf and which are Andor products. None of them that I've seen. Now do the same
Yeah.
thing for Lego. Okay? The biggest toy company in the world, and one of the biggest licensing contracts they have is with, obviously, Star Wars. Go down the huge 1 or 2 aisles that Walmart and Target both have dedicated to nothing but Legos, because that's what sells. And go look at the section of Lego that is Star Wars and find for me how many different Andor Lego sets they have in there. Answer, 1 to none. Okay? This idea that Andor is driving merchandise is a load of crap. This is the same argument that people tried to make when Rachel Ziegler Snow Brown was coming out, right? Oh, well, it's gonna help push a lot of Snow White toy sales. No, it didn't, because Snow White, traditional Snow White, was gonna sell whether that movie came out or not. And the proof was that even Deadline, like we said earlier, their own estimates at Deadline was that the Rachel Ziegler Snow White movie only sold around $2 million in merch. And that merch was the Rachel Ziegler iteration of Snow White with the olive brown skin on the doll.
Yeah.
So no, this idea that Andor is selling merchandise is a damn lie.
And I'll suggest this, that the people that bought the license to make the merchandise lost money.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the people that hold it, like the Hasbros and all these guys out there.
There's 2 things that I want to point out here. First of all, they're still trying to sell Rachel Ziegler Snow White dolls at the parks for $150.
And there's more to that story, folks. Stick around. There's another huge quote in there.
Well, and there's also, I mean, consider this. I mean, she's not exactly selling out like the West End right now either. And there's a lot of stories out there that I don't believe that, she's not actually going to be in this because they don't want her anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so on Andor, they spent $650 million on a show that is on a streaming service that they are struggling to give away at $2 a month or free if you're a subscriber to Spectrum or to I think it's free with Comcast too right now, maybe also Verizon. And they're trying
DirecTV got it.
They're trying to supplement with ads.
Yeah.
They are not making that money back.
Make sure you're subscribed to Valiant Renegade and join us every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show.